Our next speaker almost needs no introduction, but I will just briefly. Graeme Cooke is a graduate of Cambridge University. He was in private practice in England for a number of years. He subsequently has earned an MBA and has had a number of senior positions, including as a senior government policy advisor to the UK Department of Environment, Food and Rural Affairs, and as a member of the government panel on bioterrorism. Graeme is also a Lieutenant Colonel in the Military Reserve Forces, and he's been in the role of Director of the FEI Veterinary Department since July 2009. So, Graeme, welcome.
Good morning, everyone. What I wanted to do was to use this opportunity to give an overview, a pause, let's say, in the FEI approach to the list of prohibited substances. The role that the list formation is currently in with a view to 2011, and also the role of the list group in the NSAID question. It is difficult. To set the context, previously the FEI had an approach of general broad categories to prohibited substances in the terms of no antidepressants, no cardiovascular drugs, that type of thing. And in response to various events and also the rapid growth of the sport, we set up some commissions to look particularly at the doping and medication problem. And the aim of them was really, obviously, to improve the clarity, to have much better transparency. And it was a chance for us to pause and to look at what had been working well and what was working particularly well in other sports, especially in WADA, which really is currently the brand leader. And we were looking to put into place new regulations, new anti-doping regulations. We also really had to look at what did we mean by prevention? Was prevention purely sanctions? Were the sanctions good enough to perform their function? Or was prevention about providing information, and was it about communication? And were we making things simple enough and communicated in a clear fashion to the athletes? And the regulations themselves really accompanied two other recommendations that came out of the commissions. One was a series of measures to improve integrity. That really is consistency in applying the rules in a fair and appropriate fashion. And also professionalisation measures within the sport. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean professionally paid staff. It means well-trained staff, well-briefed, who can apply the rules, as I said, in a fair and consistent manner. But really, I'm going to talk particularly about rules and regulations. Because at the heart of the rules and regulations really is the list. And the list is an itemized approach to prohibited substances rather than talking in terms of broad categories, which was previously the way. The list is very much based on the WADA system. There was a slide yesterday presented by a member of the WADA list group, Dr. Marshall Soye, who'll be back this afternoon. And he described the composition of their group with physicians, pharmacologists, lab directors, and so on. The 2011 list group, currently working in 2010 because it works a year ahead, has 10 members, 2 pharmacologists, 2 lab directors from FEI reference labs, 2 sports veterinarians, 2 veterinarians nominated by national federations, and 2 research and performance experts. Now, the list will always be large, and frankly, it will get larger and larger because we're particularly interested in keeping human medications out of the horse. And of course, there's a lot of human medications. It also considers everything that the FEI believes to be prohibited and tests for. And we now have the technology to test for almost anything. So it's a statement of honesty, really, that this is what we're interested in, and this is exactly what we do not want to have in the horse. Now, if you have a list, it really gives you better guidance as to what is allowed. If you know what's prohibited, then you have better guidance as to what's not prohibited. And we're working on developing that further because there clearly needs to be some guidance in some areas. But previously we had some confusion over whether antibiotics were allowed, insect repellents were allowed, and so on. And it's made it a much easier process for people to take decisions with some sort of confidence that they're not doing anything wrong. And we've also added modern joint therapies about which there was some doubt for a while. And at the heart of the list, which is at the heart of the regulations, there are 2 categories. There's one category which is banned substances, which are substances that we believe have no legitimate use in the horse whatsoever. And that brings about a minimum of a 2-year fine, a minimum of a 2-year sanction. And below that line, we have controlled medications, which are substances, non-steroidals are an example, which possibly have a sanction up to 2 years, but not necessarily 2 years, and certainly not on the first offence. And I'd really like to say, before I move into the current list status, that since this has been in operation in April of this year, we have seen a statistical trend downwards in the number of cases we're currently having to encounter, but it's early days yet. So I said I'd give you the current list group status. The 2011 list has been reviewed according to 2 criteria. Is it performance enhancing? And does it affect the welfare of the horse? There are new substances obviously being released by pharmaceutical companies every year. That's taken into consideration. But there's also a realization that perhaps some substances are in the wrong category. And for example, this year we're proposing to take all antihistamines out of the banned substances category and put it into the controlled medications category. And the list has been through the first draft, and it's now out for consultation with the national federations, with the closure of consultation this afternoon. The list is also tasked, and this has been made publicly available through minutes from executive board meetings, with passing comment on the non-steroidal question. And therefore, like you have been, latest available evidence has been presented to them. Scientific papers have been made available to them. There's also a cross-national expertise on this year's list group, and there are many people with particular understanding of performance and non-steroidal issues. And the intention, as I say, is to comment on this sometime in advance of the General Assembly as we go forward towards decisions that have to be made at the General Assembly. So we're in the Congress now, which is not the end at all. It's the beginning of the process for everyone. But we have a wider consultation in process. You've been subject to a very determined communications effort. We've set up a special website. On that website, there is an area where you can go and have your say, and you can email directly to your comments, and they will be analysed. We provided you with a summary of the abstracts for the Congress. There will be a report, a short report, not definitive proceedings on the Congress. And of course, you may have noticed there's a lot of technology, because we're very, very determined that the unique information that's been gathered at this Congress will be available to anyone who has an interest, particularly those people who couldn't attend today, but also for you to review and to recap. And this will all be available right up until November. So I want to leave you with this email address. It's very obvious on the website where to find it. Please, between now and Taipei, feel free to share it with colleagues and get back to us with your comments. Thank you very much.